So, I mean, we all love our gun tube stuff, but this is myths that Hollywood has taught you, as in the royal you, because I'm guessing most of us in chat probably already know about all this bullshit. It's still gonna be funny though. So I think this is gonna be fun. Let us check this out.
With the exception of pointless sequels and remakes, there is nothing that Hollywood loves more than guns. Whether a movie is set in the Old West or the distant future, whether it's action or comedy, there is always a good chance that...
Fun fact, I don't know if, he's probably not going to talk about this in this movie, or in this video, but the bank heist shootout from Heat. How many of you guys have seen the movie Heat with Pacino and De Niro and Val Kilmer? The bank heist shootout towards the end of the movie is very widely regarded as one of the most accurate depictions of proper firearm use, squad movement, and communication. It is often taught in, I can't remember if it's in military, like basic training, if it's shown in military basic training or like police. I forget which was, but that bank heist shootout from Heat is considered one of the best real, true to life depictions of a squad based firefight. So I thought that might be interesting. And yes, you cannot pull a grenade pin with your teeth. You will break your fucking teeth.
That guns will play some role in the plot. But Hollywood gets a lot of things wrong about guns. Sometimes it's just to make the action easier for the audience to follow or to keep the pace of the movie flowing, but more often than not, it's a bunch of over-the-top and completely impossible nonsense done just because the director thinks that it'll look really cool.
Dodge this.
Yes.
Today we're going to look at several of these gun myths that have become Hollywood tropes, and of course, don't try this at home.
Yes, I do remember the North Hollywood shootout. Yes, I do.
You've likely seen it 100 times in movies. Someone takes a shot at a barrel of oil or gasoline, a car's gas tank, or even a propane tank. The result is a massive explosion, often triggering other explosions in the process. People love seeing things blow up in movies, so it's no surprise that this trope would remain popular. But are exploding barrels a real possibility? Well, no, not even a little bit. It would require the perfect proportion of air to vapor. A barrel full of liquid gasoline is unlikely to have much air or vapor, let alone enough of them in the exact amounts required to facilitate an explosion. You would require either a gas tank or barrel that was mostly empty of liquid fuel, but that had also been heated to a point where the liquid fuel was turning into vapor. In this specific scenario, it becomes somewhat more plausible, but it's still extremely unlikely because of the precise mixture of air that is needed as well. Even if the mixture inside the barrel was correct, firing an ordinary bullet...
I don't know about needing a flame lit a few feet away. A spark could do it depending upon what the vapor concentration is. However, it is highly unlikely you will get an explosion and you will simply just get flame. Now, in some cases, you may get like a very quick poof of fire, but you are not going to get the Hollywood kaboom explosion. So, a spark can do it depending on how concentrated the flammable vapors might be. It is possible. They're fun, Shadowclaw.
Bullet at it still wouldn't result in an explosion because the reaction requires an ignition source. A standard bullet won't produce enough heat or sparks to cause the gas to ignite. Instead, it's just gonna leak. It's really boring.
But a bullet ricochet, depending upon the material, still highly unlikely. Bear in mind, a bullet ricochet typically does not spark. That's another Hollywood trope, is that, when bullets ricochet off something like metal that they spark, that is not the case. So it would be you would need like the once in a lifetime ricochet shot to cause a bullet to create a spark. So that's a maybe he'll mention that here, but that's also a trope that doesn't work.
Boring, we know. If there, for some reason, was an open flame near the puncture, it's possible that the vapor could ignite, but even then, it's more likely to just burn rather than explode.
Yep.
The odds of an explosion could be increased by using tracers or incendiary rounds, but even then, it's not guaranteed to work, and it remains
There you go,
unlikely.
Jameson.
People love explosions, so it's unlikely that Hollywood is going to stop embracing this myth anytime soon, but the very notion that shooting a barrel could cause it to explode was likely the result of another Hollywood myth.
There we go. This is exactly what I just said.
Whenever a gun is fired in a movie and doesn't hit its target, sparks typically fly everywhere. From the perspective of a visual narrative, this serves to show where the bullet actually hit and just how close it came to striking the hero. Alternatively, firefights in movies may take place in rooms filled with needless amounts of glass, as the shattering glass can produce a similar effect to aid the viewer's perception. However, in the real world, bullets will very rarely cause a spark. The sparks that you see when two pieces of metal are struck against one another, or when metal is struck against a rock, are tiny fragments of metal that have broken off and ignited. In order for this to happen, there needs to be a sufficient amount of friction and heat generated by the impact. Most importantly, this works best with harder materials like iron. Bullets, on the other hand, are typically made with lead and copper. As a general rule, these materials don't spark because they are so soft. While harder materials can generate large amounts of friction on impact, these softer metals simply deform instead. Though it makes sense to have bullets spark in movies so that the viewer can see where the bullet hit, this is nothing like the real world. And as it relates to the previous myth, since ordinary bullets don't actually spark even when they strike other metals, a bullet fired at a barrel would not generate the means to ignite the gas. When you think about sniper scenes in movies, it's usually some lone assassin on a rooftop. They get into position, assemble their rifle, then quickly take their shot before packing up their gear and making their escape. It certainly looks cool in movies, but it's not an accurate portrayal of snipers at all. To begin with, the rifle would already be assembled when the sniper got into position. These guns need to be sighted, and doing so requires taking test shots to ensure that they are properly zeroed.
And that's another thing that it is a movie trope too. Is that somebody can pick up either, in this case, a sniper rifle or just about any battle rifle, and they're pinpoint accurate with just picking up a random rifle, and they're pinpoint accurate when those things need to get sighted in. And once you sight it in, you leave it alone. So whenever, like in the military, if you ever receive a new weapon, one of the first things you have to do is sight it in. Yard dog, I would say, at a guess, the one movie that I can think of that may be accurate, actually there may be two. I think there may be two movies. One, the name is escaping me, but it was the one about that real-life sniper who was killed by his best friend after he finished his tour service. For the life of me, I cannot remember the name of it. Bradley Cooper starred in it. So, but I can't, it's a fairly recent movie. Yeah, the Chris Kyle movie. Thank you, American Sniper. Thank you, Mia. So, to my understanding, that was fairly accurate in that respect. The other sniper movie that I think might have been reasonably accurate is an old Tom Berenger movie called Sniper. They made a whole bunch of sequels that went kind of off the rails with it, but I think the original Sniper movie was reasonably accurate when it comes to snipers. Even though there probably was some Hollywoodization to it. And yeah, Jameson, you're right. Snipers will not let anyone touch their fucking rifle. At all. It's because that is their lifeline. They need to know that that thing is going to be sighted in and proper when they have it. Absolutely.
Zeroed in. Without taking these extra steps, what looks like a perfect shot might actually miss the target entirely. It's also extremely rare for snipers to work alone. They generally work in two-person teams
Correct.
consisting of a sniper and a spotter, with the spotter being the more experienced team lead. Sniping involves both a lot of reconnaissance and a lot of maths, both of which are predominantly left to the spotter. They will identify.
And that's something that you brought up. Who was it that brought up? Oh, and I love cats. Thank you for the follow. Who brought it up? Who brought it up? Hang on. Zool. Wait, not Zool. Yaradar. You brought up the movie Shooter, which, while not accurate, there was one part that he was right about where Mark Wahlberg was doing like some dialogue talking about what's needed to be a sniper. Where, okay, Talos, have a good night. Where he was talking about the calculations needed to make these really long distance shots, such as accounting for the curvature of the earth and needing to do calculus to make your shots. That is actually true for snipers. But that was like one of the few things in Sniper. But again, as he's saying here, the spotter is the one who kind of makes those calculations, not the sniper. The sniper's whole thing is they are in the scope and they are on the target, and then the spotter will tell them, okay, adjust, they will instruct them on how to adjust their windage. So, yeah.
Identify the targets and calculate the distance to their target. They also need to monitor weather conditions, taking into account wind speed and direction, as well as temperature, humidity, and altitude. All of these can affect the trajectory of a bullet, and all need to be accounted for. In the
Yeah, and you know what? Even though they are not snipers, this scene from the Hurt Locker was accurate in terms of snipers because you had your one guy that was on the rifle.
All of these can affect the trajectory.
And then you had Jeremy Renner.
Bullet and
you had Jeremy Renner in the spotter's position because this was a scene where they got ambushed, and the sniper and the spotter actually got killed. So Jeremy Renner takes up the spotter position. I forget who the other guy was. Takes up the rifle. And they actually did this scene correctly because these guys stayed here in this position for something like 12 hours, waiting to see if the last shot that he had made actually killed the opponent, killed the enemy. They stayed there watching their target for something like 8 or 12 hours before they finally went, okay, he's dead, and leave it. So this was, while this is not a sniper movie, this is an EOD movie. This was actually a pretty accurate sniper scene in the movie.
All need to be accounted for. In the incredibly rare instance where a sniper had to work alone, they would need to do all of these calculations themselves. That's not to say they wouldn't be capable of doing so. Movies generally just don't bother showing how much maths is involved in the job. In addition to aiding the sniper in lining up the perfect shot, spotters also need to ensure that their location remains undetected, monitoring for any activity.
Correct, Mia. You are 100% correct. Yeah. If you are a sniper and you are in position to make your shot, you're not moving. Your eyes staying on the scope, you're not moving, and if you gotta take a pee, well, be ready to change your pants once the mission's over, because you're peeing your pants.
That might suggest that they've been compromised. In the event that enemy combatants locate the sniper, a spotter will be equipped with an M16 or other automatic weapon to fight off attackers. After all, a sniper rifle may be great for taking out a single high-priority target at a long range, but it's terrible for fighting against multiple targets at close range. Of course, the reality of a sniper's job doesn't necessarily make for great cinema. Missions frequently involve multiple days of observation and waiting, and it requires a lot of patience. A lone badass assembling their rifle and taking out a target mere seconds later looks much cooler to a typical audience, but it is a far cry from the reality of the job.
Absolutely true. And here's the thing, a lot of snipers, like we saw this in American Sniper, with what happened in the Middle East is a lot of snipers are put on Overwatch. So they're not doing recon of the area, and they're not doing forward scouting. They are in an Overwatch position. that they cannot move from for hours on end because they are in Overwatch for like an area that maybe an infantry platoon is doing clearance on or something like that. Classic one, yes.
When people are shot in movies, they tend to fall backwards, which does make intuitive sense. If you're struck from the front, your body should travel in the same direction as the force that was imparted onto you. However, in movies, this effect is exaggerated to the extreme.
That scene from Django Unchained is fucking hilarious. He just lifts his gun, boom, and she just gets yeeted right out the door. The wrong way too, mind you. But don't do.
Movies,
watch
this
watch
effect
again.
is exaggerated to the extreme.
They're shooting at her straight, and she yeets straight backwards. And granted, obviously Django Unchained was glamorized to fuck by Tarantino with the gunplay, but this is just fucking hilarious.
Gunshot victims in movies don't just fall backwards, they fly backwards through the air. The bullets will knock a person clean off their
Now, hang on, let's see this again.
backwards. They fly backwards through.
These guys, this one was more accurate than he's giving credit to. This is kind of a bad visual movie example because these guys didn't fly backwards. They stumbled backwards. They got shot and they kind of like spun around and they stumbled backwards. So they didn't fly backwards from the shots. Not in this one anyway.
Through the air. The bullets will knock a person clean
And this
off
one
their
he
feet,
did.
causing their body to crash against a wall behind them or even fly through a pane of glass. And again, this does make some amount of intuitive sense. Bullets move extremely fast, and so they should transfer some amount of momentum to anything that they strike. Now, while that is absolutely true, bullets are also really small. A bullet weighs only a few grams, while the average person in North America weighs 80 kilograms. This means that the force imparted will be largely negligible with respect to the person's weight. According to a 1996 paper published in the National Journal of Medicine, a bullet striking a person will result in a maximum backwards motion of 0.18 meters per second. To get numbers that high required using shotguns and large caliber rifles, whereas a handgun would only cause a person a backwards motion of about
This right here, this scene in Django Unchained is probably one of the most accurate representations of being shot. But back it up again.
large caliber rifles, whereas a handgun.
This scene right here has been widely considered one of the most accurate representations of what it's like to be shot in real life.
Would only cause a
Whereas
person
he
a
had shot,
backwards motion of about
he barely
0.01
flinches
meters.
and looks down in confusion like, what the hell just happened? Because there are plenty of people, like, they'll get shot, especially by smaller caliber rounds, may not even realize they're shot until later.
Seconds. As a basis of comparison, a typical walking speed is 1 to 2 meters per second, so this backwards motion from being shot ranges from almost entirely negligible to completely negligible. The body will also reflexively counteract this motion as well. Realistically, the most that will happen after being hit by a high-powered firearm is that a person may need to take a single step backward to catch their balance. It's also worth noting the bullets aren't designed to impart force onto a target. They're meant to pierce the
Yeah, Shadowclaw, I know. I've made the same complaint as well. People like shooting in the upper left pec area, saying that that's where the heart is. And when I mention this, when I talk about this, like when I would say to someone, yeah, when they show like a quote unquote heart shot, and I go, well, that's bullshit. They'll look at me like, what are you talking about? And it's like, okay, let's think about this logically for a second. How do you perform CPR? You put your hands 2 fingers up, center of the sternum. That's where the heart is. You're pumping the heart at that point. You're not putting your hands in the upper left pec. Yard dog, maybe that's where it came from. I don't know. But it's entirely possible that the hand placement during the Pledge of Allegiance is what inspired Hollywood to say, oh yeah, that's where the heart should be. But yeah, it's complete bullshit. Now, you get shot there, you're gonna have lung issues. Like, it'll probably it could very well rupture a lung, absolutely. But it's not heart. And it's just like the same thing where people talk about when I mentioned before, I'll tell people that when uh people are often under the misconception of you are breathing in oxygen and you are exhaling out carbon dioxide. Not true. You are exhaling out probably about 80% of oxygen, maybe 20% carbon dioxide is what you're exhaling. You are primarily exhaling oxygen. Because if you were exhaling high concentrations of carbon dioxide, once again, mouth to mouth would not work. Mouth to mouth resuscitation does not work if you are primarily exhaling carbon dioxide. So that's why, because you are exhaling about, I believe the number is 80% oxygen, that's why mouth to mouth works, because we're primarily exhaling oxygen. And you're right. You'll hit that's where the descending aorta is.
Skin and cause maximum damage to a person's insides. In order to knock someone over, it would require a much larger, heavier, and flatter projectile. This would also be much less deadly. But what if it actually could work? What if someone designed a gun that really was powerful enough to knock a target clean off their feet and send them flying backwards through the air? Well, theoretically, there's nothing that makes designing a gun for this purpose impossible, but good luck to whoever actually fires this one, thanks to Newton's third law of motion. Newton's law states that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. If object A imparts a force onto object B, then object B will impose an equal force on object A in the opposite direction. It's why your hand hurts.
Simple terms? Somebody created a gun or a round that could do that, the recoil would fuck your world up. Plain English right there. The recoil would be an utter bitch.
After you punch someone, and why guns have recoil. But that recoil is nothing compared to what a theoretical gun would create. In order for a gun to fire a bullet that could send a person flying through the air, the person who fired the gun would have to be sent flying through the air in the
And yes, you're right. It's a shotgun is one. A shotgun is one firearm that could actually knock someone off their feet. Not as far back as like what we saw in the Django Unchained clip, but yes, a shotgun, especially one that's using buckshot versus slug, could absolutely knock someone off their feet.
the opposite direction. Though an effect like this has almost certainly appeared in comedies before, action movies and dramas are unlikely to ever employ this more realistic physics.
Unlimited ammo, yeah.
Automatic guns are a staple of action movies. There's something so satisfying for audiences about seeing their favorite action hero pull the trigger and unleash a seemingly endless barrage of bullets on their enemies. It's common to see people in movies spray bullets in fully automatic mode for a solid 30 seconds or longer before reloading, assuming the movie even bothers to show them reloading at all. It looks cool, and it allows the director to include lots of sparks, shattering glass, or even trees being fully cut down by gunfire, but this is absolutely ludicrously impossible. A standard magazine holds 20 to 30 rounds, and fully automatic weapons fire anywhere from 600 to 950 rounds per minute, depending on the model. Even taking the low end of that, which is the firing rate of an AK-47, that's still 10 rounds per second. After just 3 seconds of fully automatic fire, the magazine would be empty and need to be reloaded. The standard combat load for US infantry is only 210 rounds. The average soldier takes 2 to 4 seconds to change magazine, so firing all of that ammo on fully automatic mode would take less than a minute. Given how much automatic gunfire is seen in action movies, this highlights just how ridiculous the amount of rounds action heroes shoot is. Rambo could fire more rounds than a soldier's entire combat load without ever reloading, and the movie might even just treat those as warning shots. Because of how fast magazines can be emptied, and because the recoil makes firing in this way extremely inefficient, some military weapons don't even have fully automatic options anymore. Instead, they may only allow for single shot or 3-round bursts.
Interestingly enough, there is a stuntman. I forget his name. Eric something. For the life of me, unfortunately, I can't remember what his last name is. He's sat in with the Corridor Digital guys when they've done like Stuntman React videos. He actually did a Punisher short video. It was like a 3 or 5 minute video where it's basically him doing a shootout and as the Punisher. And one of the things he said is that he was actually he was very number one that he used an actual blank firing gun, didn't use airsoft, so they brought in an armor and they used an actual blank firing gun. But they were actually he was very cognizant of how many rounds were in the weapon. So I think he said that the weapon that they used had a 10-round magazine. So in the video, he actually does only fire 10 rounds before reloading. So that was really cool that he actually paid attention to the the round constraints of the magazine for a Punisher video, who is like, one of the biggest bullet spitters in comic book history. So that's like it'd be nice if and honestly and you know what? I'd say the John Wick movies also were very cognizant of ammo capacities as well. I feel like I never really tracked it, but I really feel like the John Wick movies were very careful about not doing the endless magazine situation too, because you are constantly seeing everyone reloading in John Wick, especially John. You're seeing him doing reloads all the damn time. So that was another movie where they were very good about ammo counts in a weapons magazine. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the few. It's one of the few firearm based movies where it is a 100% shoot 'em up. But they were really good about, okay, he's going to be able to shoot this many rounds and then he's going to have to reload. Yeah, Yardork, the first Deadpool movie. Yeah, that was the whole shtick for that first gunfight. Was the ammo count. That was his whole shtick, and it worked. Silencers.
When it comes to movies involving spies and assassins, there is no greater tool than the silencer. Not only do these devices turn the loud bang of a firearm into a barely audible pew or poof, but they seem to magically silence the target as well. Characters in movies who are shot with silenced pistols almost universally die instantly and silently rather than screaming in pain like those
Well, I mean, that's true for most Hollywood shoot 'em ups. Most Hollywood shoot 'em ups, you shoot the bad guy once and they're dead, which is not reality. I mean, well, not reality most of the time. You can get an actual kill shot on someone if you like get them in the head or you get them in the heart, and even then it's not guaranteed that they're gonna instantly expire. It's just that's another trope of movies is the one-shot kill so often when it's not the case.
shot from unsuppressed guns. But is there any truth to this at all? Well, kinda, yeah. Silencers, or suppressors as they are more accurately called, do dramatically lower the volume of a firearm. Guns produce sounds that are up to 175 decibels. By way of comparison, a jet engine only produces 140. A suppressed gun, however, lowers the volume to between 110 and 120 decibels on average. While noteworthy, on the surface, 50 to 60 decibels doesn't sound like a huge reduction. The suppressed gun only produces about 35% fewer decibels of sound. However, it's important to remember that decibels are a logarithmic scale, and every 10 decibels is an apparent doubling of volume. This means that an unsuppressed gun is 32 to 64 times louder than one with a suppressor. That is a huge reduction in volume, but when the starting point was louder than a jet engine, it is still pretty loud. For reference, 110 decibels of suppressed firearm is the same volume as a chainsaw. But despite originally being marketed with the name, silencers weren't actually designed to be silent. The first commercially successful silencer was
I will say, Scott did a video where he had this really fucking impressive silencer that he put on. I forget the weapon he put it on, but it was the suppressor that he had. The suppressor was so good he didn't need to wear hearing protection when he used it. Like that's an impressive level of suppressing. Was it a CZ hunting rifle? Um, yeah, it's but like I watched this video. I watched one of those videos, and he didn't even need to wear hair protection when he fired it. So I mean, that is very impressive. That's like that dropped it really low.
Was produced by Hiram Percy
Yeah,
Maxim
it
in
might
around
have been Albert.
1902.
It might
He
have been.
invented the device because his
I
father,
don't
Hiram
remember.
Stevens Maxim, inventor of the world's first fully automatic machine gun, went deaf as a result of all the testing that he had to do with his guns. Maxim, by the way, used the same technology as his silencer to invent the car muffler as well. Those suppressors do dramatically reduce the volume and incidentally also reduce recoil.
Hey Maxim, you think you could instill that technology onto some of my neighbors that are constantly driving by my house with their mufflers sounding worse than an unsuppressed firearm?
They were designed as a way to reduce permanent hearing loss. That's not to say they aren't without military applications, of course. The reduced sound can make it harder for enemies to locate their attacker. Suppressors also reduce or eliminate muzzle flash, making it even more difficult to locate a shooter's position while also protecting the shooter's night vision. But for all their potential benefits, suppressors remain anything but silent. The shot will still produce a loud crack, the mechanical action of the gun makes plenty of noise, often exceeding 100 decibels on its own, and the bullets will still create a sonic boom when they break the sound barrier.
Oh yeah.
If you would suddenly find yourself under fire, a good idea is to take cover. For Hollywood, taking cover seems to mean hiding behind literally anything at all. Whether it's an old refrigerator, a couch, or a wooden table, people in movies are always dodging behind objects to shield themselves from the oncoming bullets. Of course, none of these things we mentioned actually provide any meaningful cover. While a mattress or thick wooden table might provide some level of protection against birdshot, a typical handgun will have no problem piercing any of these objects. Of the things we listed, a refrigerator is the most likely to save your life, but only if it's full and you're lucky enough for the bullet to pass through a lot of stuff on its way to the other side. An empty refrigerator won't offer any protection. But of all the things people take cover behind in movies, none is more.
And Mia, I was gonna say the same thing. If you're gonna hide behind a car, hide behind the engine block. That is the one part of a car that you can hide behind that will actually offer you protection against firearms, is if you hide behind the engine block.
Ubiquitous or more egregious than hiding behind a car, particularly a car door. It happens all the time in Hollywood shootouts too. A police officer will fling their door open and use it as a shield while occasionally standing up to return fire over the door. In reality, a car door would offer no protection. This has been tested countless times, and the results consistently show that while a small caliber handgun bullet might be slightly deflected, bullets generally have no issue passing through a car's body or windows. The only part of a car that would provide serious cover is the engine block, though ensuring that your body is effectively hidden behind the engine would be more than a little difficult, especially in the heat of the moment. The idea that hiding behind a regular couch would save you from...
Honestly, the easiest way to position yourself behind an engine block, if you're hiding behind a car, is to simply tuck in behind the front tire. If you position yourself right at the back of the front tire, you're probably in a good position where you are covered by the engine block. So if in a crisis situation, all you have to do is just look down slightly. Okay, the front tire is just slightly ahead of me. You're probably behind the engine block at that point. No, Santa Claus, no, in Tremors it punched Victor. And I think when it comes to police officers using the car door, cause that's been used in real life by police, but I don't think it's meant to. I want to say it may not necessarily be used as a protective measure, like tucking it behind the car door. I think it's used as more concealment. I think the car door, when used by police on like high-risk traffic stops, is used more as a means of concealment versus cover. Because the bad guy may not necessarily know where to shoot. Because typically in a high-risk traffic stop, they're gonna have like spotlights on the bad guy, so they're gonna be blinded. And so by tucking in behind a car door when you have a suspect at gunpoint, the door, not only are they blinded, but because you're behind the car door to a degree, the bad guy may not necessarily know where you are and may not be able to properly get aim on you. So it gives a little bit of a heightened chance that if a bad guy does start shooting at you, they're going to miss. And yeah, cops will have body armor as well. But it's more for cover. It's more for concealment versus cover. In the case of law enforcement, that.
Oncoming bullets may be ridiculous, but audiences are unlikely to complain about this trope too much. If the characters were immediately killed instead of somehow being shielded by a sofa, they would never get the chance to exchange pithy lines of dialogue with their attackers, and well, really, that's what action movies are all about, aren't they?
That one's very nice. Correct. Concealment is not cover. Exactly correct. Yes, that's why I said that they might use it for concealment and not as cover. That was quite nice. That was very nice. I had a feeling we were gonna like that one. I did, because that one's a lot of fun because it's poking fun at movies.